Hello everybody and happy Friday. We have another array exercise from practiceit.cs.washington.edu. I'll put a link to this problem in the description. It's a very good website to practice collections problems, anything regarding programming exercises. It can help you with interviews, homework, and just a good assessment of how you can translate English language into code. So you know what's being asked and you know how to produce the solution. And that's what I'm going to walk you guys through here today. It says write a static method named range that takes an array of integers as a parameter and returns the range of values contained in the array. The range of an array is defined to be one more than the difference between its largest and smallest element. For example, if the largest element in the array is 15 and the smallest is 4, the range is 12. And this is the case because the largest value is 15, you subtract 4, which is the smallest, that will give you 11, you add 1, that's 12. If the largest and smallest values are the same, the range is 1. And what's nice is they give us a table here that shows some test cases of this method. In the first example, you see the largest value here is 8, and it looks like the smallest one is 2, so you have the largest minus smallest, 8 minus 2 is 6, you add 1, and that will give you your range. Okay, so it also says you may assume that the array contains at least one element, that its length is at least 1. You should not make any assumptions about the values of the particular elements. They could be extremely large, very small, etc. Okay, so what we need to do is generate a method signature, and it says write a static method named range, so that's the name of it. It takes an array of integers, so that's going to be our parameter, and returns the range, which is going to be an integer. So we're going to have a public static integer, and the name of the method is range, and it takes an array of integers. I'm going to call it ARR, but you can name it whatever as long as it's not a keyword. Just make sure it's not a keyword. So one thing you need to do with these types of problems is assume that there's already a max element or a small element, and you can make it whatever you want. In this case, I'm going to set it equal to the first element of the array, and I'm going to tell you why. So I'm going to declare an integer variable, int max element, and I'm going to set it equal to the value at the first element of the array, which is at index 0, zero-based indexes. Okay, I'm going to do the same thing with the minimum element. I'm going to tell you why. What we're going to do is loop from the second element of the array. So since it's zero-based indexes, we're going to set it equal to 1, which will start at the second element. We're going to set it, make I less than the length of it, so from start to finish, start being the second element, and then we're going to increment the value of I. The reason why I'm making the assumption that it's the first element is because if there are no values beyond the first element of the array that are larger or smaller than what I already declared, then that will be our max element and min element. It's a lot easier for us to just assume that the first element is both the maximum and minimum. If that's not the case, then we're going to traverse the loop and find values in the array that are potential candidates of being larger or smaller values than these two. So we're going to have two conditional statements, and I'm going to tell you why I don't use an else statement here. The first condition is if we find a value that is larger than max element, then we're going to set max element equal to the new value. What this means is we found an element, we found a value beyond the first element in the array that is larger than the first one. At this moment, max element is the value of the first element in the array. If it finds a larger one, then it's going to replace the value of max element. And I'm going to do the same thing here, but with a minimum. So this means if we find a value inside the array that's smaller than minimum element, then we're going to replace it with this. So once we're done with the loop, we would have found the largest and smallest. The reason why I don't use an else statement is because there's the potential of two values in an array that contain the same value. if two values are in an array and they're both let's say 10, they're no larger or smaller than each other. They're both equal. So that would make those two values both the maximum and minimum. And since we're done with that part, we just need to return max element minus min element plus 1 will give us the range, and this will return the range as an integer. So let's hit submit. Cannot find symbol min. Oops. Alright, there we go. So what we did is make two conditional statements that can test whether we found a value that is either larger or smaller. And it can be true to both of those methods. You know, there's the potential that it's both the maximum and minimum. So that is exercise 7.2. I'll put a link to this problem in the description, and we're going to do a few more array exercises. Appreciate you watching this video, and I hope you guys found it helpful. Have a good one.